Mr. President, we have a national emergency.
This is one of the things that we can shoot first and ask questions later. Normally you can't do that.
All of a sudden these trees started moving out of the way. They parted for me. And then I came out into this opening, and there where I saw Jesus Christ.
Back in 1927, an American socialist, Norman Thomas, 6 times candidate for president on the Socialist Party ticket, said the American people would never vote for socialism. But he said under the name of liberalism, the American people will adopt every fragment of the socialist program. He is more imminent.
James Madison, in 1788, speaking to the Virginia Convention, said, "Since the general civilization of mankind, I believe there are more instances of the abridgment of the freedom of the people by gradual and silent encroachment of those in power than by violent and sudden usurpations."
When men were free.
Broadcasting live from a secret location buried deep below the earth, you're about to make a connection to the signs of the times. W. Dean Shook is live on the air right now.
Welcome into End Time News. I'm your host, W. Dean Shook. Thank you for being here. I appreciate all of you so very much. This is kind of a long update. This is a little bit longer than what I usually do because there's so much to report on. I've got these stories about Russia possibly poising for World War III. I'm going to report those stories to you here in a minute. But first, I have an abortion update that I have to share. And according to CNS News, late-term abortion averages 1 per hour. Apparently, what's important is to calculate the cost of letting babies live. I'm not kidding. They're saying it is a cost estimate of the Pain-Capable Unborn Child Protection Act that was released yesterday. The Congressional Budget Office estimated that about 10,000 unborn babies are killed each year in the United States in abortions that take place at 20 weeks or later in pregnancy. That's 5 months. That works out to an average of 27.4 late-term abortions per day. That's 1.14 per hour. I don't know where they get the 1.4. But the CBO made the estimate as it tried to calculate how much it would cost the federal government if Congress enacted the Pain-Capable Unborn Child Protection Act, which prohibits killing unborn babies at 20 or more weeks into pregnancy. Now, unless the baby who's going to be killed was conceived through a reported rape or incest against a minor, or if the life of the mother is at risk. The CBO determined that estimating an exact dollar cost to the federal government for prohibiting people from killing babies in late-term pregnancy is difficult to do. Well, based on data compiled by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the CBO estimates that each year about 10,000 abortions take place 20 weeks or more after fertilization. 11 states prohibited abortion after 20 weeks, according to the CBO, and another 31 states prohibit abortions occurring at later points during a pregnancy. Now, the CBO said it cannot know for sure how many babies would be spared death by the bill, based on its conclusion that the cost of not killing babies in late-term abortions would come primarily through Medicaid. The CBO then estimates it to be the cost of the federal government allowing these 2,500 babies per year to live. As a result, they said, we estimate that the increase in federal costs for Medicaid would total $235 million over the 2015-2025 period. However, there's a wide range of uncertainty around the central estimate. CBO estimates the budgetary effects on other programs would be negligible. The CBO says there would also be a cost to state governments. So apparently now we have to calculate the cost of letting babies live and not murdering them. Now, according to Black Genocide, Planned Parenthood situates 78% of its abortion clinics in minority neighborhoods. It's almost as if Planned Parenthood is targeting black or brown babies. And maybe it is. Listen to this. Margaret Sanger, the founder of Planned Parenthood, shockingly said, "Colored people are like human weeds and need to be exterminated." she created the Negro Project to sterilize unwitting black women and others she considered undesirable. Her motto was grotesque as well as Hitler-esque. She said, "More children from the fit, less from the unfit." Now, according to Planned Parenthood's own numbers, they performed 327,653 abortions in 2013. That's the last full year that numbers are available. They did much of this on our dime, taking a staggering $540 million, that's almost $1.5 million a day in taxpayer funds to carry out this grisly mission. In other words, we're paying them about $1,500 for every dead baby. According to the Centers for Disease Control, 36% of all abortions are done on black women. Now, doing some quick math, 36% of 327,653 reveals that Planned Parenthood terminated the lives of 117,955 black babies in the year of 2013. There's proof out in the open for everyone to see that this is the case. Do you see abortion clinics in rich upper-class neighborhoods? No. How about in middle upper-class neighborhoods? No. How about poor white neighborhoods? Yeah, you'll see a few there. How about in minority or black neighborhoods? Yes. In fact, the largest, most productive Planned Parenthood clinics are in these minority neighborhoods, because the goal is the same that it's always been for Planned Parenthood: stop the reproduction of people who they consider unfit to reproduce. There's about 550 Planned Parenthood clinics in the U.S., but there's another 800 plus Planned Parenthood affiliates who don't get counted in those Planned Parenthood numbers. And for those of you who have sent me emails asking me if I'm going to harp on abortion all the time, I say yes. I'll harp on it, scream about it, report it, do whatever I can to get the truth out about the murder of innocent lives every chance I get. And do you know why? Because I'm being a voice for the lives of people who have no voice. So yes, expect it. And I'll say this to anyone who doesn't like me reporting on abortion. There's plenty of news outlets out there that would be more than happy to tickle your ears and tell you things that'll make you feel warm and fuzzy. And I would encourage you to go and listen to them if you don't like it. Now, while I realize that sometimes the truth hurts, the truth must be told. That's what you can expect on End Time News, even when it's not pretty. However, there is some good news on the abortion front. Washington, D.C., an estimated 500,000 protesters gathering today in Washington in the 42nd annual March on Life, just as a strategic shift for the pro-life movement started to take place. Now, protesters no longer are waiting for action from the Supreme Court to Roe v. Wade. Instead, they're taking direct action against the abortion providers themselves, throwing hurdles in front of the operations of the abortion industry. Investigations are being conducted, and improper or illegal activities are being revealed. Regulators are being informed about details of offenses. Questions are raised about abortion clinics that can't meet health standards. Abortionist backgrounds are being reviewed. At the heart of this process is Operation Rescue and its president, Troy Newman, who joined a prayer vigil outside the Washington headquarters of Planned Parenthood. The event was the first of many vigils and prayer meetings scheduled for the day for these protesters. Planned Parenthood is, in Newman's phrase, the largest abortion provider in the entire world, and was responsible for an estimated 330,000 abortions last year. Yet, Newman says he is excited because of the stunning gains made by the pro-life movement in recent weeks and months. He estimates that 75% of the nation's abortion clinics have closed, citing a peak number of about 2,200 in the 90s, down to about 500 now. These estimates show a pattern of continuing decline, highlighted in a recent Operation Rescue entitled Death Throes for the Death Industry. And in light of that, Renee Elmers leads the GOP cave-in on the abortion on the eve of this march. This according to Breitbart News. As hundreds of thousands of members of pro-life communities descend on Washington, D.C. for the March for Life Thursday, the Republican leadership in the House and representatives have caved to Representative Renee Elmers, Republican from North Carolina. and a group of GOP women who believed passage of a bill that would ban abortions past the 5th month of pregnancy would hurt the party's chances with women and millennials. So in this first story that I reported, they want to keep murdering babies because of the cost. Now they're going to allow the continued murder of these babies because it might hurt the party's chances. Really? Well, the vote on the Pain-Capable Unborn Children Act was to take place today, when hundreds of thousands of members of the pro-life community will participate in the annual March for Life on the National Mall. Additionally, over 2,000 millennials are due to participate in the Student for Life of America conference in D.C. on Friday. Now, according to CNN, other establishment Republicans have joined Elmer and her group, but most of the GOP women who were seen huddling in the House floor during votes on Wednesday would not talk about their decision. Yeah, I think I would be ashamed too. And speaking of our new Congress, the GOP leaders plan to grant enormous new power of Congress, providing a rubber stamp on foreign policy. Well, he's already boasted of wielding power through a pen and a phone. President Obama wants to add a rubber stamp to his desk set. The rubber stamp would be named U.S. Congress. Buried in his State of the Union address, Obama said he'll ask Congress to give him trade promotion authority. He didn't say what trade promotion authority would do, but critics charge that it would cede the Republican majority control of the congressional agenda to Obama and strip Congress of its ability to vet and amend international agreements. Senator Mitch McConnell, Republican from Kentucky, acknowledges Obama is asking for an enormous grant of power, obviously from a Republican Congress to a Democrat president. Yet McConnell and other GOP leaders in the House and Senate apparently are ready to surrender constitutional powers to the White House. In the GOP response to Obama's speech, Senator Joni Ernst, Republican from Iowa, signaled she's on board with the plan. She said, let's tear down trade barriers in places like Europe and the Pacific. She apparently was referring to the Trans-Pacific Partnership and the Transatlantic Trade and Investment Partnership, two global governance agreements the Obama administration has been negotiating without congressional oversight. Paul Ryan, Republican from Wisconsin, chairman of the House Ways and Means Committee, announced Tuesday he'll hold a hearing next week on the trade policy featuring testimony from U.S. Trade Representative Michael Froman, a Citibank crony who shuttles between jobs on Wall Street in Washington. Earlier this month, Ryan said giving Obama trade promotion authority, also known as fast track, is the first thing we ought to do. Fast track trade promotion authority would expedite passage of the Trans-Pacific Partnership. The sweeping international agreement would merge the U.S. economy with 11 other nations, including Brunei, Malaysia, Vietnam, nations that practice Islamic law and persecute Christians and other non-Muslims. The TPP has been described as the largest ever economic treaty, representing more than 40% of the world's gross domestic product. It's the frontrunner to the equally secret Transatlantic Trade and Investment Partnership between the U.S. and European Union. Are you okay with that? Well, let me tell you, I just put a link on my website. This link says Contacting Congress. It's at wdeanshook.com. It'll take you to a website where you can click on your state, and it gives contact information for your state representatives. And if you don't like the smell of this, I would highly recommend you use it. That's at wdeanshook.com. All right, the rumblings of World War III. I've got some stories out of Moscow, out of Lithuania, that I'm going to cover right after this short break. Whatever you do, don't go away.
Only God plans parenthood.
A nation that kills its own young has no future and no honor. That is why I'm going to try to stop abortion.
Abortion is the only crime you don't go to jail for. That's why I'm going to try to stop it.
If the Crusader Saints were with us today, they would be with my generation in stopping abortion.
Abortion is wrong because it stops a beating heart. I'm going to do everything I can to stop it.
Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou.
Abortion is the killing of society's most defenseless, and that's why we should stop it. People keep insisting on equal rights. Don't unborn babies have equal rights as well?
This is for all the innocent children who have never had a chance to live because of abortion. End abortion, end the carnage.
If killing people is a crime, why isn't abortion considered a crime? It is my duty as a Catholic and a gentleman to stop it.
My generation is going to replace the culture of death with honor and purity.
We protect the rainforests. Shouldn't we protect humans too?
Abortion stops the plan of God before it even has a chance to start. That's why I want to stop abortion.
This is the fact. Pro-abortion people are getting older and older, while pro-life people like me continue getting younger and younger, and we're going to continue fighting abortion.
I want to live in a country that is pro-life, but abortion destroys that dream. That's why I want to end abortion.
Abortion is not a choice, it is a sin. If we want God to continue blessing America, abortion has to stop.
Abortion destroys Christian civilization, offends God's law and Our Lady. Fight abortion. Viva Cristo Rey.
The reason I'm against abortion is because it is the killing of an innocent life.
The right to life is a God-given right. That's why we want to stop abortion.
The best way to illustrate abortion is to imagine the person you love very most cut up into pieces and thrown into a trash bag. Thanks, Mom, for being pro-life.
Smile, you survived abortion. A lot of the people that could have been your friends didn't have that chance.
We need to let God call the shots because He's the only one that can plan Parenthood.
Truth is, only God plans parenthood.
Only God plans parenthood.
Attacks! Always! Never!
Do you think the media is biased? Maybe they're leaving something out, or there's something they're not telling you. Now, you have a source for the truth in the news. W. Dean Shook, End Time News. Your connection to the signs of the times.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. These are the stakes. We either stand up to supporters of terrorism, or we and our allies risk losing the freedom we cherish. We must not let the jihadist government of Iran get a nuclear bomb. President Obama has had opportunity to stop them, but he's failing. Join with us, and let's secure America now.
There is a sense in the world. There's a sense among believers. There's a sense among unbelievers. There's a sense among all peoples that things are unhinged. The Middle East is unhinged with uprisings, revolutions, and where's this heading? How are followers of Jesus to relate to all of these things? How do they relate to biblical prophecy? America is in spiritual, moral crisis. Values are changing, and so rapidly, that have not happened in the history of man. How are level-headed, responsible Christians to relate to the testimony of the biblical prophets and the unfolding of chaos throughout the world? Not just believers are wondering, is this a sign of the end?
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. These are the stakes. We either stand up to supporters of terrorism, or we and our allies risk losing the freedom we cherish. We must not let the jihadist government of Iran get a nuclear bomb. President Obama has had opportunity to stop them, but he's failing. Join with us and let's secure America now.
All right, thank you for that break. And according to the Moscow Times, Lithuania is publishing a manual to advise its citizens on how to survive a war on its soil, as the country's defense minister warns its Russian neighbor is not friendly. It says, keep a sound mind. Don't panic. Don't lose clear thinking. The manual explains gunshots just outside your window are not the end of the world. The manual, which the Defense Ministry will send to libraries next week and also distribute at Army events, says Lithuanians should resist foreign occupation with demonstrations and strikes, or at least doing your job worse than usual. In the event of an invasion, the manual says Lithuanians should organize themselves through Twitter and Facebook and attempt cyber attacks against the enemy. Lithuania spent much of the last century incorporated in the Soviet Union along with Latvia and Estonia, and upon independence in 1991, quickly sought to join the Western NATO alliance and the European Union. It's increasingly worried about Russia, not least because of military drill in Russia exclave of Kaliningrad last month that featured 9,000 soldiers and more than 55 naval vessels. The examples of Georgia and Ukraine, which both lost part of their territory, shows us that we cannot rule out a similar kind of situation here and that we should be ready, Defense Minister Aleska said. When Russia started its aggression in UK, here in Lithuania, our citizens understood that our neighbor is not friendly. The Lithuanian army and its paramilitary reserve force have seen increased recruitment since the crisis in Ukraine. The government is also considering requiring all future buildings to incorporate a bomb shelter on the premises. Lithuania is publishing a manual to advise its citizens on how to survive a war on its own soil, as the country's defense minister warns its Russian neighbor is not friendly. And also, according to International Business Times, there's a warning from Gorbachev that says the NATO expansion into Ukraine could ignite nuclear war. He says the world will not survive the next few years. Former Soviet leader Mikhail Gorbachev, without necessarily taking sides with Russia President Vladimir Putin, told a German news magazine that NATO instigated the current Ukraine crisis because it had chosen not to adhere to the provisions of the Paris Charter of 1990, thus saying the dangling nuclear option between the bloc and Russia is just a matter of time. With both sides flaunting their respective nuclear arsenal, Gorbachev told German magazine Der Spiegel, the world will not survive the next few years. If either side lost its nerve in the current standoff, Moscow does not believe the West, and the West does not believe Moscow, and the loss of confidence is catastrophic. Now, although he's critical of his successor, Gorbachev believed Mr. Putin was just reacting based on NATO's flamboyant aspirations to expand, fueled by the United States' dangerous winning mentality. He said U.S.-led NATO eastward expansion has destroyed the very essence of the European Security Order, which was written in the Helsinki Final Act of 1975. The bloc's expansion, he claimed, was a 180-degree turn away from the Paris Charter of 1990, he said, that was made together with all European states to finally leave the Cold War in the past. He went on to say, we won't survive the coming years if anyone loses their nerve. This is not something I'm saying thoughtlessly. I'm extremely concerned. Tensions between Western powers and Russia escalated after pro-Russian separatists overtook large parts of eastern Ukraine. Afterwards, Russia annexed Crimea in 2014. NATO has been escalating its forces in Eastern Europe while accusing Russia of sending troops to Ukraine, and repeatedly denied the allegations. And Russia kicked it up a notch. Russia cut gas exports to Europe by 60% 2 days ago, plunging the continent into an energy crisis. 2 days ago, gas companies in Ukraine said that Russia had completely cut off their supply. 6 countries reported a complete shutoff of Russian gas shipped via Ukraine. It's a sharp escalation of a struggle over energy that threatens Europe as winter sets in. Bulgaria, Greece, Macedonia, Romania, Croatia, and Turkey all reported a halt in gas shipments from Russia through Ukraine. Croatia said it was temporarily reducing supplies to the industrial companies, while Bulgaria said it had enough gas for only a few days, and it was in a crisis situation. The EU demanded the two sides reopen talks as the row immediately sparked fears of gas shortages and rising energy prices in the UK. Currently, the UK is suffering one of its coldest nights this century, with temperatures plunging to as low as minus 10 Celsius. Though Britain is one of Gazprom's latest importers, relying on the company for some 16% of its consumption in 2007, according to the Times, the gas is supplied through a complicated swap scheme that means supplies themselves may not be affected. Prices, on the other hand, rose during trading in London. Around 80% of the gas European Union countries receive from Russia comes through Ukraine. And as of yesterday, Russia is positioning nukes to confront NATO. This reported by WND exclusively. Moscow could be preparing to move nuclear weapons into the Crimean Peninsula, which it annexed last year, and also position them around the strategic Russian enclave of Kaliningrad near the majority of NATO countries, in possible violation of the 2010 Strategic Arms Reduction Treaty. According to a WND source, the move would send a message to NATO to limit its eastward progression in line with the new military doctrine Moscow released in December. A source who worked in the past with U.S. administrators on nuclear weapon issues told WND that this kind of buildup in Crimea would include nuclear weapons, and there's a question whether it would be a violation of the 2010 START Treaty since Crimea has been annexed by Russia. If not strategic nuclear weapons, Moscow could move tactical nukes into Crimea. Peter Vincent Pry, former analyst for the Central Intelligence Agency and director of the U.S. Nuclear Strategy Forum, said Moscow has been preparing for a nuclear war, but its intentions have been largely unreported by the establishment media. For years, Russia has been embarked on a massive program modernizing its strategic and tactical nuclear forces, Pry said. Pry, who also is executive director of the Congressional Advisory Task Force on National and Homeland Security, said Moscow's preparation for nuclear war with the U.S. are frequent themes on Russian television, as if preparing the population psychologically. He noted Russian President Vladimir Putin on April 6, 2014, told a French television audience that Russia has global nuclear superiority and is the first in the world in nuclear weapons. Unfortunately, Pry said, Putin is right. Pry said Moscow is giving strategic nuclear forces the highest priority in its defense budget. He said the strategic rocket forces, as during the Cold War, is still Russia's elite service. Russia also has a major advantage over the U.S. in tactical nuclear weapons, Pry said, since the U.S. has dismantled virtually all of its tactical nuclear weapons with just a few hundred obsolete gravity bombs bunkered in Germany. Russia has thousands of tactical nuclear weapons, variously estimated at 3,000 to 20,000, he said. Pry said the Obama administration has tried to lowball the numbers, said the significance of Russia's tactical weapons is a grave mistake. And remember, you can email me at contact@wdeanshook.com. Facebook is WDeanShook. Twitter is WDeanShook. The homepage, WDeanshook.com. And as usual, when the dust settles and the smoke clears, I'll be back with another update. Thank you.
You can get these full stories and more at WDeanshook.com. That's WDeanshook.com.